Matt Rhule, man, I said this to start the live show. Every single time he speaks, I just feel like you, one, get smarter about football, and two, you get smarter about life. And I think there's no exception to that with what he said, talking about Trev Alberts and his departure to be the AD at Texas A&M. Really quickly, make sure you're subscribed here. We talk college football every single day. Yes, even during the month of March, as you're filling out your bracket, we're talking college football because the sport, quite frankly, does not stop. We got spring games. We got the portal moving and shaking, about to open up after spring football. Like, I promise you, the game is continuing to be a year-round thing. That's why we get to have this show. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a minute of it. We appreciate you so much in advance for doing that. So Matt Rhule, in case you missed it, steps to the podium yesterday, and to give you the summary, basically says, hey, I've had a lot of people ask me about my contract and my situation at Nebraska, and he's like, hey, I'm here. I'm all in. My family's all in. We're all in on Nebraska. And I think some people heard that, and there was a couple of different responses to it. One was, heck yeah, that's our coach, which I think is probably how his locker room felt. I think that's probably how the community in Lincoln felt. There's some folks, though, on the outside looking in, I said, yeah, well, you're supposed to say that. You're supposed to say that when your AD leaves, who you came there to work with, a guy who probably was a pretty big attraction for you taking that job at Nebraska. Like, yeah, okay, you're supposed to just kind of say the right thing. And it might have been the right thing to say. I don't think that's untrue. But for the crowd that says, yeah, well, Matt Rhule is just supposed to say that. He's supposed to say that maybe. Is he supposed to say it the way that he did? Because Matt Rhule, man, to provide some context here, he came out swinging in that press conference. Like, it was not something that he waited to get asked about and then eventually answered it in kind of a roundabout way. He opened the press conference saying, I know I'm going to get asked about this. Here's the deal. I'm here. I'm in. Trev Alberts left. That makes me sad. He said he loved working with Trev Alberts. He loved the way Trev Alberts operated. He loved the way that Trev Alberts was on the cutting edge of modern college football and modern college athletics. He loved that. But at the same time, he's saying, listen, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. My wife's opening a business here. My kid's going to start school here. I'm invested here. I'm invested in our football team. Again, some people saying, well, that's just the right thing to say. The right thing to say, but the way that you say something too, and the timing in which you say something, I think that matters. And the way that Matt Rhule said this, the timing Matt Rhule said this, he was on offense. He was making a point from the jump. And the reason why I think he's saying that, the reason why I think he's genuine in saying that, he knows what he's got in Lincoln. He knows what's going on in Nebraska, what's going on in college football. He's got a good setup, and he knows it. He's got elite buy-in from that fan base. Imagine if they start winning. Imagine if they start having even just 8-win seasons. And you see that arrow continuing to point up, and the trend continues to roll how you expect it to in Lincoln. That's only going to amplify. Matt Rhule knows that. The care factor in Lincoln, Nebraska with those folks, it's second to none. It's second to none. And guess what? That matters more than ever before in modern college football. Your buy-in and your care factor from your fan base translates not just to better facilities and sold-out crowds, it translates to better players because you then have the resources in NIL to attract top guys. Powerful national brand. Regardless of what they've done on the field or haven't done on the field the last couple of seasons, you see that red N, whether you're in Atlanta, Georgia, or whether you're in Sarasota, Florida, or whether you're in Fallbrook, California, you know what that is. You don't say, what's that? No, you know that brand. It's a national brand. It's a powerful brand. And Matt Rhule understands the firepower behind that. Also, they're in the Big Ten. They are one of the first classes of college football. If college football was a plane, everyone sitting in the Big Ten is in first class of that airplane. Yes, because of the financial prowess and the money you make from that TV deal. There's no way around that. But also, look at where college football is headed. Everybody and their mama sees it. We're heading to a super conference era. AFC, NFC, SEC, Big Ten. Nebraska's more than fine whenever those tectonic plates shift. There's going to be more realignment. There's going to be more things happening. It could be the ACC. It's probably going to be Florida State and something like that happening. When those tectonic plates shift, guess what Nebraska gets to do? Guess what Matt Rhule gets to do? Watch. Grab a bag of popcorn, kick them up on the sofa, and say, I wonder how this is going to unfold. Because they're not worried. They're not worried about what's going to happen in Lincoln. They've got their spot secure. They're in a winning conference in terms of how this whole thing is going to formulate to the new era of college football. That matters. That security matters. Now, when it comes to the whole, that's your boss and he just left, how does that impact you kind of conversation? Another reason to be subscribed here. We talked about it in a one-off video. I think it was Friday. Your boss your boss's job is to make sure that things are running at the highest level possible, right? Production's at an all-time high, efficiency's at an all-time high. They are there to make sure you do a good job. Okay, so Matt Rhule, whoever that next boss is at Nebraska for him, will only matter as much as Nebraska football allows it to matter. What I mean by that is if Matt Rhule continues to be successful, I say continues to be successful because I do believe last year, even though they didn't make a bowl game, I think there was a lot of things that happened behind closed doors that you could call a success, and I think they would call a success. If they're successful, doesn't matter who his boss is. Why? Because they're going to be winning 8 football games, 9 football games, hopefully more than that in Lincoln. You're not hearing from your boss when you're doing well. You hear from your boss when you're doing poorly. Hey, how can we help you? How can we fix some things? Hey, get it together. Those are the conversations you hear from your boss. You don't really get a lot of, hey, great job. You might get that once a year, twice a year. Who knows how it works in Lincoln? I don't pretend to understand exactly what that conversation for an attaboy would look like. But you're not hearing from your boss when you're doing a good job. And I think Matt Rhule, as much as he came to work for Trev Alberts, he came there to be a part of what Nebraska is. And so, again, I'm going to say this. It will only matter as much as Matt Rhule and Nebraska let it matter. I don't think it's going to matter that much. Because losing Trev Alberts is a bummer, but, like, he wasn't calling plays. He wasn't catching passes. He wasn't scoring touchdowns. He was overseeing the athletic department. But when it comes to Nebraska football, that's on Matt Rhule. And, again, you look at the arrow for Nebraska football, it's pointing straight up. Buy-in is there, yes. Culture, I think, is going to take a massive jump from year 1 to year 2, just how Matt Rhule does things. Defense, you bring back almost as much returning production as anyone else in the country. From a defense that allowed 18 points a game, you bring back your DC. You landed your quarterback of the future in Dylan Raiola, who I would expect to start for you this year in Lincoln. There's a lot of things that are pointing to success in the future at Nebraska. So we'll see how this whole thing unfolds, but I don't think Matt Rhule was being disingenuous when he said all in. I think he meant that, and I think there's a lot of reasons for him to mean that. So, we'll keep an eye on the tectonic plates of college football, but Nebraska and Matt Rhule, I think they're safe for the foreseeable future. And I don't think he was beating around the bush when he said he was all in Lincoln. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.